rotary dial clicking back into place, a heavy plastic receiver being lifted off the hook. A 56-year-old man exhales in the dark. Listen closely to this silence. It is 1984. There are no guns drawn. There is no smell of cordite in the air. Just a quiet hotel room in Brazil, and a phone line connecting to a magistrate office in Rome. But the moment the voice on the other end says hello, a 100-year-old empire begins to crumble. This was not a hero seeking redemption. This was an assassination, carried out through a telephone wire. For a century, the Sicilian Mafia, Cosa Nostra, operated on a flawless, invisible security protocol. They called it Omertà, the law of absolute silence. But Omertà is not a religion. It is not some sacred romantic vow of brotherhood. It is a mathematical equation of fear. It is a corporate risk management system designed to guarantee that the cost of speaking is always higher than the cost of staying quiet. If you talk, you die. Your children die. Your neighbors die. The system was perfect. It was a black box that the Italian government could not crack. Law enforcement thought the mafia was just a loose collection of violent street thugs. They had no idea they were fighting a highly organized, heavily armed shadow government. Tommaso Buscetta was not a victim in this system. He was a boss. He was a monster who had built his entire life within that black box. He knew the architecture of the underworld better than anyone alive. He was loyal to the code. But the system had a fatal, arrogant flaw. It assumed that a man could be controlled forever if you took away everything he loved. Totò Riina, the head of the rival Corleonese clan, decided to test that theory. Riina did not just want power. He wanted an absolute monopoly. And to get it, he initiated a corporate restructuring, a complete and utter bloodbath. Between 1981 and 1984, the streets of Palermo turned into an abattoir. Buscetta was hiding in Brazil, watching his bloodline being systematically erased from the earth. The data of his loss is cold and precise. 2 sons disappeared, strangled and dissolved in vats of acid. 1 brother, dead. A nephew, dead. A son-in-law, dead. 11 members of his family, wiped out in a matter of months. They called it the Lupara Bianca, the white shotgun. It is a clinical term for a body that simply ceases to exist. No crime scene, no blood, no funeral, just a void. This is how Totò Riina operated. Yanon did not just kill Buscetta's sons. He erased their physical presence from the universe. For a father sitting thousands of miles away in Brazil, the absence of a body is a psychological torture designed to break the mind. You wait for a phone call that never comes. You stare at the blank wall. The mind races, imagining the final moments of your children. Were they terrified? Did they beg? The Corleonese clan weaponized this uncertainty. They thought this psychological pressure would paralyze him. Riina thought he was securing Omertà. He thought by butchering Buscetta's family, he was sealing the old boss's mouth shut forever with grief and terror. It was a logical calculation, but it was a catastrophic misjudgment. Imagine the paranoia of that apartment in Brazil. Every knock on the door could be a hitman. Every meal could be laced with poison. Every glance from a stranger in the street is a potential threat. The air feels heavy. The silence in the room is deafening. Buscetta is a ghost waiting for his executioner. He has no army left. He has no weapons that can reach across the Atlantic to strike Totò Riina. The traditional rules of engagement are entirely useless. Then, a psychological shift happens in the dark, a terrifying realization. Riina had used violence to destroy the ancient rules of Cosa Nostra. Therefore, Buscetta would use something much more lethal to destroy Riina. He looks at the phone. He realizes that the government, the police, the judges, They are not his enemies anymore. They are a weapon. A massive, bureaucratic, heavily armed weapon, just waiting to be pointed in the right direction. He does not want to confess to clear his conscience. He wants to upload a deadly virus into the Italian judicial system. He wants to feed them the exact coordinates of the Corleonese Empire. When the Brazilian police finally arrest him and extradite him back to Italy, everyone expects him to follow the script.
Silent.
The script says he stays silent. The script says he goes to a maximum security cell and waits for a Corleonese blade to find him in the prison shower. But Buscetta rewrites the script. He sits across from Judge Giovanni Falcone. The tape recorder clicks on. The room is dead silent. Buscetta leans forward. He does not ask for forgiveness. He says, "I am not an informant. I am the true Cosa Nostra. And Totò Riina is a cancer. Let us cut him out." And with that single breath, either the flawless security protocol known as Omertà shatters. But if you were sitting in that chair, knowing that speaking would put a target on your back for the rest of your life, would you have made the call? July 1984. Criminal Pole Headquarters, Rome. A featureless, windowless room. The air conditioning hums with a low electric buzz. The walls are thick concrete, designed to keep secrets in and bullets out. Two men sit across a cheap wooden table. On one side, Judge Giovanni Falcone, a magistrate with tired eyes and a thick mustache. On the other side, Tommaso Buscetta, a 56-year-old ghost. A tape recorder sits exactly in the center of the table. The plastic spools turn slowly, catching the glare of the fluorescent lights. The scratch of a fountain pen against thick paper. The metallic snap of a silver lighter. The sharp, hissing inhale of tobacco smoke. These are the only mechanical sounds of a shadow empire being dismantled piece by piece. For 45 consecutive days, this room becomes an airless submarine. They do not see the sun. They lose track of the hours. They survive on strong black espresso served in tiny plastic cups. The glass ashtrays overflow with crushed cigarette butts. The air grows stale, thick with smoke and the sweat of unbearable tension. They do not yell. There are no dramatic interrogations. No good cop, bad cop routines.
Make sure
They speak in low, hushed, almost clinical tones. Like two senior architects leaning over a drafting table, examining the blueprints of a collapsing skyscraper. Before Buscetta sat in this uncomfortable chair, the Italian state was entirely blind. They were fighting phantoms in the dark. The government, the police, the media. They all believed the Sicilian Mafia was an abstract concept, a cultural attitude, a fragmented, chaotic network of violent local street gangs, shooting each other over petty extortion money and construction contracts. They had no map. They had no organizational chart. They arrested low-level foot soldiers who stared at the floor and never spoke a word. They found bullet-riddled bodies in the trunks of burned-out cars. But they could never connect the blood in the streets to the men in the boardrooms. Buscetta changes the physics of the war. He reaches across the table. He takes a blank sheet of white paper. He picks up a blue pen. He begins to draw. He draws a strict, unforgiving hierarchy. A rigid, corporate structure that rivals any Fortune 500 company. He writes the word mandamento. He writes capo famiglia, sotto capo, consigliere. He maps out the territory of Palermo, dividing it street by street, neighborhood by neighborhood. He explains the ancient rules of induction, the blood rituals, the absolute code of conduct. And then, at the very top of the pyramid, his pen writes two words: La Cupola, the commission, a board of directors. He looks Falcone in the eye and explains that no man of honor is murdered without a formal vote. No car bomb is detonated without executive approval. The violence tearing Sicily apart is not random. It is a deeply administrative decision. It is a calculated business transaction. Falcone stares at the paper. The true terror of Cosa Nostra is not their savagery or their cruelty. It is their flawless bureaucratic order. Buscetta does not just give the judge a list of names. He gives him the source code. He opens the black box of a multi-billion-dollar criminal empire and exposes all its gears and wires. Watch his face closely as he speaks. Every time Buscetta is about to speak a name, the air in the room thickens. The silence becomes a physical weight, heavy, suffocating. These are not anonymous targets on a police whiteboard. These are men he grew up with, men he broke bread with, men he kissed on both cheeks in greeting. He knows the names of their wives. He knows the smell of their cologne. He has attended their lavish weddings, and he has carried the heavy wooden coffins at their funerals. To speak their names into the spinning tape recorder is to sever his own biological ties. Then he is performing a surgical excision on his own past. He speaks the name of Michel Greco, the Pope. He speaks the name of Pippo Callo, the cashier. With every single syllable, he's signing a death warrant. The moral dilemma in the room is entirely gray, cloaked in cigarette smoke. He's telling the exact truth. He is providing irrefutable hard facts. But his motivation is not justice. It is pure, concentrated vengeance. He's weaponizing the Italian penal code to slaughter his former brothers. 3,000 pages of testimony. That is the physical weight of the betrayal. Falcone listens. He writes meticulously, never missing a detail. He understands the terrifying mechanics of what is happening in this room. This is not a man clearing his conscience to find peace. This is a fatal transaction. Buscetta is a man walking into the room with a ticking time bomb strapped securely to his chest. By speaking into the microphone, Buscetta is carefully unbuckling that bomb. He slides it across the table, and he places it directly into the hands of Giovanni Falcone. The moment the magistrate signs his name to the bottom of those 3,000 pages, the transfer of liability is absolute and irreversible. Buscetta ceases to be the primary target. He becomes a highly protected, invaluable asset of the state. He will be flown to a secret military location. He will be given a new identity, a new face, a new life in the United States. And Giovanni Falcone, the man who represents the law, the man who represents the shield of the state. He becomes a dead man walking. He inherits the fury of the entire Corleonese clan. Falcone now possesses the master key to the empire. He holds the blueprint that can put 400 dangerous men in cages. The paradox is suffocating. The criminal has just purchased his own physical salvation by handing the judge a one-way ticket to the grave. The system of justice has been completely hijacked by a mobster's desire for revenge. Falcone walks out of that interrogation room knowing he will never live a normal life again. He will live in armored cars. He will be surrounded by men holding submachine guns. He will check under his bed every night. The unbreakable silence of Omertà was shattered. But the sound that replaces it is the steady, unavoidable ticking of a clock, counting down to Falcone's murder. February 1986, the Ucciardone prison in Palermo. And the Italian government realizes that no existing building on the island is secure enough to hold this trial. So they build a bunker, a massive, brutalist, octagonal concrete structure designed specifically to withstand an aerial missile strike. Inside this fortress, the walls are lined with heavy green steel cages. They look like zoo enclosures. Inside these cages are 475 men, bosses, underbosses, foot soldiers, hitmen. They are packed in tight. The air is thick with the smell of cheap tobacco, stale sweat, and pure, concentrated rage. They pace back and forth behind the iron bars. They scream, they spit, they hurl insults in thick Sicilian dialect. The ambient noise is a deafening, chaotic roar of cornered predators. It is a physical manifestation of an empire realizing it has been permanently trapped. Now then, the heavy wooden double doors at the back of the room swing open. The noise slowly dies down to a venomous whisper. Tommaso Buscetta walks in. He is impeccably dressed in a sharp, tailored gray suit. His hair is slicked back. He wears dark aviator sunglasses, hiding his eyes. He is escorted by a phalanx of heavily armed carabinieri. He walks to a glass booth in the center of the room. Thick, bulletproof glass. He sits down. He adjusts the microphone. He does not sweat. He does not look away. He stares directly into the cages. He stares at the men who ordered the dissolution of his sons in vats of acid. When he speaks, his voice is devoid of any emotion. It is a flat, mechanical drone. He is not giving a dramatic confession. He is reading a corporate spreadsheet. He explains the murders. He details the drug routes. He identifies the exact men who pulled the triggers. Every syllable that leaves his mouth is a heavy iron vault slamming shut. The mechanical result of his cold testimony is unprecedented in human history. 360 guilty verdicts. 2,665 years of collective prison time. 19 consecutive life sentences for the highest-ranking bosses. The impenetrable mythological fortress of Omertà is reduced to concrete dust. The system is entirely dismantled. But a machine of this magnitude does not simply power down. It fights back with terminal velocity. The dominoes Buscetta pushed in that quiet room in Rome are still falling, gaining momentum. Fast forward to May 23, 1992. A bright, exceptionally clear afternoon on the Capaci highway, just outside Palermo. The asphalt is radiating heat. 3 armored Fiat Croma sedans are traveling at high speed. Giovanni Falcone is driving the lead car. His wife is sitting next to him. They are heading home. Underneath the highway, packed tightly into a narrow drainage tunnel, are 400 kilograms of military-grade explosives. A man stands on a hill overlooking the road, holding a remote detonator. He waits for the lead car to pass a specific white marker on the guardrail. He presses the button. The explosion is so massive it registers on local seismographs as a small earthquake. A massive crater 15 meters wide instantly replaces the highway. Concrete blocks and twisted metal are thrown hundreds of feet into the air, raining down on the surrounding olive groves. The white Fiat Croma is completely obliterated. Giovanni Falcone, the man who dared to sit across from the traitor, the man who signed the 3,000 pages of testimony, is crushed to death. The state's armored shield was not thick enough. The ticking bomb that Buscetta slid across the wooden table 8 years ago has finally detonated. Now change the lens. Erase the smoke and the smell of burning rubber. Fast forward through time. April 2000, New York. Or perhaps a quiet suburb in Florida. The exact location is classified. The room is dimly lit. The curtains are drawn tightly shut. The only sound is the rhythmic, mechanical hum of an oxygen concentrator and the slow drip of an IV bag. A soft, clean, white bed. Lying under the heavy blankets is a 71-year-old man. His breathing is shallow. His skin is pale, almost translucent. He is dying of bone cancer. This is Tommaso Buscetta, the most wanted man in the history of the Sicilian Mafia, the man with a multi-million-dollar bounty on his head, the man who caused the deaths of judges, policemen, and hundreds of mobsters. He is not hiding in a cold, damp cave in the mountains. He's not bleeding out on a dirty sidewalk in Corleone. He is comfortable. He's heavily guarded by the United States government. Federal agents stand outside his bedroom door, ensuring his absolute physical safety. The taxpayers are funding his medical care and his quiet suburban existence. The ultimate irony is absolute and freezing cold. It is a paradox that breaks the fundamental logic of right and wrong. Falcone, the honorable magistrate, the symbol of pure justice, was blown into unidentifiable pieces on a burning highway. Totò Riina, the ruthless boss of bosses, is rotting away in a sterile maximum security isolation cell, staring at a concrete wall. But Buscetta, the turncoat, the murderer, the man who broke the sacred oath and weaponized the law for his own personal vendetta. He gets to close his eyes and drift away peacefully in his sleep. His family is by his side. He dies quietly, in a warm bed, untouched by the violence he helped create. This is the final chilling paradox of the system. The machine was designed to punish betrayal with absolute physical annihilation. Yet the man who committed the ultimate betrayal received the most peaceful exit. Buscetta did not win because he was righteous. He won because he understood the cold mathematics of survival. Better than the law and better than the mafia. He used two massive, rigid systems to completely destroy each other, while he slipped quietly out the back door. As you look at the empty chairs in that courtroom and the massive crater on that highway, the moral compass spins wildly out of control. If a system can only be defeated by employing a monster, and if that monster is the exact same one who gets to die a quiet, comfortable death, what exactly is the price of justice?